Ethan Brooks stood at the edge of the alien plane, his boots sinking slightly into the pale, powdery sand. The sky above was a strange mix of orange and violet, with two suns casting long shadows over the jagged cliffs that surrounded the camp. He could hear the soft hum of the human ships parked on the far side, engines cooling and soldiers talking quietly among themselves. They had been on this planet for weeks trying to establish contact with the Valari, a fierce warrior race whose reputation for strength and strategy was unmatched. Ethan was not a soldier. He was a xenolinguist, trained to speak, understand, and read languages no human had ever encountered. But here, among the humans and aliens, he had learned quickly that knowledge alone was never enough. The Valari did not trust words. They trusted strength and courage, and sometimes even those were not enough. He glanced at his team. One of the soldiers, a tall man named Luke Palmer, was pacing nervously near the edge of the camp. Another, a young woman named Clara James, checked her rifle again and again as if the weapon would suddenly save her from a danger she could not see. Ethan knew they were all afraid. He shared that fear, but it was different for him. His fear was for understanding, for the fragile bridge between species that might break at any moment. A sudden commotion near the main gate drew his attention. A Valari guard, tall and muscular, with dark armored skin and eyes that glowed faintly like amber, approached the humans. His gait was rigid, precise, every movement designed to show authority. He carried a scroll-like device that hummed softly. Ethan recognized it immediately as a message delivery. The guard stopped a few meters away and looked at Ethan directly. He did not bow or signal respect to the humans around him, but his gaze was not hostile. The guard spoke, the words vibrating strangely in the air. A translation device on Ethan's wrist beeped and the voice of the guard became clear. "The Queen requests your presence," it said. "Alone, immediately." Ethan felt a cold shiver. Alone with the Valari Queen? That was unheard of. Usually humans were allowed only to speak through intermediaries, and the Queen had never dismissed her guards for anyone before. Soldiers murmured around him, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Ethan," Clara said, her voice tight with worry, "are you going to do this? It could be a trap." Ethan nodded slowly. "I know, but if she wants to talk, we need to understand why. Sometimes the first step to peace is risk." Luke shook his head. "Risk? This is crazy." "The Queen is a warrior. She doesn't do anything without reason. You could walk in there and never come out." Ethan gave a small, calm smile. "Then I'll hope she respects courage, not fear." With that, he followed the guard across the wide expanse of sand. The guard did not speak again, and Ethan did not try to make conversation. He studied the alien city around him, the towering spires made of a material that shimmered like glass but felt as hard as metal. The architecture was strange, organic and precise all at once, as if it had grown naturally yet been planned perfectly. The streets were empty, but Ethan sensed eyes watching him from every shadow, every corner. The Valari were silent observers, and he knew one wrong move could end everything. Finally, they arrived at a massive tent at the center of the city. It was larger than any building he had ever seen, made of a deep blue material that reflected the suns like water. The guard stopped at the entrance, standing stiffly as if waiting for permission. Ethan noticed that no other guards were nearby, not even in the usual positions he had memorized from his observations. This was strange. Too strange. The guard spoke again, and the translation device repeated, "The Queen permits you to enter alone. She will dismiss all her guards." Ethan swallowed. He had expected the Queen to have 100 guards surrounding her, a wall of warriors that no human could break through. But here she was inviting him in with only herself to see. His heart beat faster, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. Calm, respectful. He reminded himself that the Queen was not a monster. She was an alien ruler, and perhaps curiosity had brought her to this point. He stepped inside the tent. The air was warmer than outside, scented with spices he could not name. The walls shimmered faintly, changing colors as if alive, reflecting light in soft waves. At the center, standing tall and regal, was the Queen, Soraya. She was taller than any human, her skin a pale shade of silver with faint patterns that glowed like thin veins of light. Her eyes were wide and golden, filled with intelligence and caution. Around her, the guards who Ethan expected were standing aside, as if frozen in place. She had indeed dismissed them. Ethan stopped a few meters away, unsure if he should bow, salute, or remain standing. The Queen did not move, only watching him with quiet intensity. "You are human?" she asked, her voice melodic but sharp, each word deliberate. I am, Ethan replied, keeping his voice steady. I am Ethan Brooks, a member of the human expedition. I am here to speak with you. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Why do you speak? She asked. No human has come to speak before. They all bring weapons. They all bring lies. Why do you come with only words? Ethan paused. He knew the answer would be simple but truthful. Because words can build things weapons cannot. Peace, understanding, trust. We fight because we want to survive. But we hope we can survive without destroying others. The Queen tilted her head slightly, studying him. Her gaze was piercing like sunlight on ice. Ethan felt as if she could see into his thoughts, into his intentions. He swallowed and continued. I know your people are strong. I know you value power and strategy. We respect that. But we also value life. And if we can understand each other, perhaps we can avoid more bloodshed. There was silence, only the soft hum of the tent walls and the faint whisper of the air circulation. Ethan's heart beat fast, but he stayed calm, focusing on every detail of her face. The way her eyes softened when she listened, the slight rise of her shoulders as she considered his words. Finally, she spoke again. You are different, she said, almost to herself. No human has ever entered my tent and spoken with honesty, without fear. You are brave or foolish. Ethan managed a small smile. I hope it is bravery, not foolishness. For a moment, they just stood there, two beings from different worlds measuring each other in silence. The tension was thick, but it was not hostile. Ethan realized that the Queen's decision to dismiss her guards was not just a gesture of curiosity. It was a test. She wanted to see if humans could truly stand alone, without fear or deception. You have courage, Soraya said finally, her voice calm now. And words are not weapons. Yet your people bring so many weapons. Why is that? Ethan looked down at his own uniform, at the sidearm strapped to his belt, the small laser rifle leaning against a support beam. We prepare for the worst even when we hope for the best, he said. War is easy. Understanding is hard. The Queen made a soft, almost imperceptible sound like a sigh. Perhaps this is why I watch humans. Why I study your kind. You fight, yes. But you also speak. You risk yourself not with claws or fire, but with ideas. Ethan nodded. He knew this was the beginning of something unusual. Something fragile but important. I hope we can continue to speak, to understand. That is why I'm here. Soraya's eyes held his for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, she gestured to the guards who had stepped aside. They retreated further, leaving the space between her and Ethan completely empty. She took a step closer, the light in her skin shifting slightly with her movement. You may speak freely, she said. But know this, words alone may not be enough. We will see if your kind can hold them. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and hope. He had never been so close to a being so powerful and so unlike himself, yet he also felt a strange sense of trust forming, delicate but real. The Queen had dismissed her guards. She had chosen to speak alone with a human. That choice carried weight, and he knew it. I will try, he said simply. I will do my best to show that words can matter. Soraya studied him a moment longer. Then she nodded slowly, deliberately. We will see, she said again. Outside the tent, the suns were setting, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Inside, two very different beings began the first careful steps toward understanding. One step at a time, through words, curiosity, and courage. Ethan did not know what would happen next, but for the first time since arriving on this world, he felt that something unusual, and perhaps important, was beginning. And for the Queen, watching him stand there without fear, she felt something she had never felt in her long reign. The possibility that humans were more than simple fighters. They might be different. The desert wind blew softly against the tent walls, carrying with it the scent of alien sands and the promise of the unknown. And in that moment, in the silence between two worlds, the first thread of trust was woven. Ethan returned to the tent the next day. The suns were lower in the sky, painting the desert with soft gold and violet colors. The wind carried a dry scent of sand, and he felt the weight of his own nervousness as he approached. Today's meeting was not just another chance to speak. It was a chance to understand the Queen more deeply, to see beyond the strength and pride she displayed. Soraya was already there, standing in the center of the tent, her eyes glowing faintly. The guards had stepped aside, leaving the space open just as before. She watched him arrive, her expression unreadable. Ethan could feel her study him as carefully as he studied her. Every movement, every pause was measured. "You have come again," she said softly. Her voice carried authority but also curiosity. "Why do you continue to risk yourself for words?" Ethan looked around the shimmering tent before speaking. "Because words are the start of understanding. If we do not try, there will only be fear, anger, and war. I want to know your people, not just fight them." Soraya's gaze held him. "Few humans speak like this. Most speak to command or to threaten. Your words are unusual." Ethan smiled faintly. "I do not come to threaten. I come to listen." The queen tilted her head slightly. "Then listen, you shall." She paused, looking away toward the shimmering walls. "The Vailari were not always warriors. Long ago we lived peacefully like humans do now. But our homeworld died and we had to fight to survive. Strength became necessary, not choice. And now some think strength is the only path." Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand. Humans also have suffered, but even when we suffer, we try to choose peace because we know war destroys more than it builds." Soraya stepped closer, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "You speak of choice. You humans value choice more than life itself. Strange. How can life mean anything if choices do not matter?" Ethan took a small breath. "Because choice gives meaning to life. Without it, we are only survival machines. We fight, yes, but we hope to build, not just survive." The queen's expression softened slightly, though her eyes were still sharp. "Perhaps that is why I watch humans. You fight with courage, yes, but you also hope." Ethan felt a small thrill of hope. For the first time, he felt that the queen was listening, truly listening, without suspicion or anger. "I hope that if we understand each other, we can find ways to survive together, not against each other." Soraya studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she asked, "Tell me of Earth, your people. What makes humans human?" Ethan blinked, surprised. Most questions from aliens were about strategy or technology. This was personal. "We have oceans, mountains, forests," he said slowly. "We have cities and machines, yes, but we also have stories, songs, and families. We fight because we must, but we also care. We love, we dream. That is what makes us human." Soraya tilted her head, her glowing skin shifting color slightly. "Love, dreaming? Strange concepts for creatures who fight to live. But necessary," Ethan said firmly. "Without them, we are only warriors. Without them, we lose the meaning of life itself." The queen's eyes narrowed, and Ethan realized he had touched something in her. Perhaps it was a memory, a feeling buried under centuries of war. "Perhaps you are right," she said quietly. "Perhaps there is more to life than strength. But many Vailari do not see this. They see only survival." Ethan nodded. "That is why I am here. To show them there is another way. And to show you, Queen, that humans are not always just fighters." A silence fell over the tent. Ethan could hear the faint hum of the walls, the soft swish of wind outside. He realized that trust, even fragile trust, was growing here. The queen had dismissed her guards, and she had asked personal questions. Both actions carried risk, and both showed that something unusual was happening. Soraya finally spoke again. "You are brave, human. Or foolish. Perhaps both. I wonder if other humans would dare step into my tent as you do." "I do not know," Ethan admitted, "but I believe some would. We hope to learn even when it is dangerous." The queen studied him, her expression unreadable. Then she moved slightly closer. Ethan noticed the subtle glow in her skin, the way it pulsed with each breath. She was alive in a way humans were not, yet also familiar in ways he could not explain. "Tell me more of your people," she said. "What makes them fight if not survival?" Ethan thought carefully. "Humans fight because we care about what we love. We fight for family, friends, and ideas. We fight because we want freedom. Survival alone is not enough. If we only survived without hope or choice, life would be empty." The queen's eyes lingered on him. "And yet your species has destroyed much in your history. Entire civilizations. Yet you speak of hope and choice. Strange." "Yes," Ethan said softly. "We have made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we try to learn from them. That is why I am here. To try to build something better than war." Soraya's expression softened a little. She moved toward a low platform in the center of the tent, and Ethan noticed carvings on the surface, symbols that seemed to tell stories of past battles, past leaders, past victories and losses. "These are the stories of my people," she said. "They teach strength and caution. Yet perhaps they also teach wisdom. Do humans have such symbols?" Ethan nodded. Yes, we have stories, songs, books. We pass down knowledge, lessons from the past. Some are happy, some are sad, some teach bravery. All teach life. The Queen's eyes glimmered faintly. Perhaps we are not so different after all. Humans and Vailari, both shaped by struggle yet both capable of more. Ethan felt a surge of hope. This was progress, slow and fragile, but real. Yes. And if we can understand each other, perhaps we can avoid more suffering. We can learn to trust instead of fight. Soraya looked at him long and carefully. Trust is dangerous. It can be betrayed easily. I know, Ethan said. But without trust, there is only fear. Without trust, there is no hope. For the first time, Soraya smiled faintly. It was a small, almost imperceptible gesture, but Ethan saw it. You are persistent, human. You speak boldly and yet with respect. Most of your kind would not do this. I speak because it matters, Ethan said simply. Not for glory, not for power. Only because understanding matters more than war. The Queen regarded him in silence, then nodded once. Perhaps. I misjudged humans. Perhaps there is more than strength in your hearts. Ethan felt a thrill of cautious optimism. He knew that words alone would not stop wars, but he also knew this was the first step. The Queen had invited him, dismissed her guards, asked questions, and considered his answers. That was remarkable. Do you wish to see my people? Soraya asked suddenly. To understand how we live, how we fight? Ethan hesitated. If it is safe, yes. I want to learn everything I can. She gestured toward a small doorway that led to a corridor beyond the tent. Then you shall see. But remember, human, we are warriors. We will not act as humans act. Do not expect our ways to be simple. I do not expect simplicity, Ethan said. I expect truth. And that is enough for me. Soraya nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then follow me. The corridor was quiet, the walls shimmering faintly. Ethan followed carefully, noting every detail. The carvings, the subtle light, the air thick with the scent of minerals and spice. Soraya moved with grace, every step confident, commanding. He felt the weight of the history behind her, the stories of warriors who had come before. Finally, they reached a large chamber where several Vailari were gathered. They paused as the Queen entered, then bowed in respect, their glowing eyes flicking to Ethan with curiosity and caution. She looked back at him. They see you as I do, human. Be calm. Speak carefully. Ethan nodded, swallowing the nervousness that threatened to rise. He had faced soldiers, captains, and diplomats before, but nothing like this. These were alien warriors, powerful and proud, and yet for the first time they were not enemies. Greetings, he said, his voice steady. I come to learn from you, to understand your ways and perhaps to share ours. The Vailari regarded him silently, their expressions unreadable. Soraya stepped forward, placing herself between him and the others. Watch carefully, human. Observe, listen, this is who we are. And perhaps in time you will see why words matter. Ethan nodded, his heart racing. He knew that the next hours, the next days, could decide whether peace would come to this world, or whether the cycle of war would continue. But for now he had this chance, and he would not waste it. In the silence of the chamber, two worlds began to speak, not with weapons but with attention, respect, and cautious hope. The first fragile threads of understanding were being woven, and Ethan knew that everything depended on what they learned from each other. Outside, the suns dipped lower, painting the sands in gold and shadow. Inside, a human and an alien queen took the first careful steps toward a future neither could yet imagine.